Welcome back to Moose Preparedness. I am Moose. Long time no see, YouTube. So, for those who've been following the channel at all, we have been moving. Where? Well, we're overseas. We're no longer in the United States. So, if you think about it from a preparedness standpoint, we've effectively moved and had nothing. So, we've had no capabilities. Our stash was gone. We have no house. We have no anything. So, this is a great time to kind of talk about how we made sure that we were still maintaining preparedness capabilities while we were in transit, and how they're applicable to whenever if you are just starting out, or if you are, God forbid, some of those folks like up in North Carolina during Helene or other situations, how you can kind of move ahead and go forward and get back on the right track. All right, so first off, this was a planned move. I'm military, so therefore, hey, Uncle Sam says go, you go. It was wanted by the family to try and get out and explore a little bit. However, does it put us out of our comfort base? Absolutely. So I'm currently in a country that does not allow firearms. So a lot of folks on preparedness channels love talking about guns and ammo, and I do too. I had a whole series on prepper guns that I had to cut short because, hey, when you don't have guns, it's kind of hard to talk about them, kind of hard to show their use, their function, how I set my stuff up. I can still do that, but it seems kind of disingenuous because it's not here. So how do we maintain where we're at? Well, first off, in transit. So one of the things that you got to remember out is that we literally fled the country. So if you think about it that way, so we left with what we could carry. Really makes you think about what was important. So we were able to carry 2 bags each. Not realistic for a bug out scenario, but it was realistic for our situation because that enabled us to kind of go, hey, this is all you have. It's all you got on you. So imagine you've got to put your entire life into 2 bags. So if you put your entire life into 2 bags, what do you take? Well, for us, we ended up taking a myriad of things. Sorry, I'm going outside because it's finally gorgeous out. If you've ever been, let's just say, on the other side of the Atlantic, it tends to be a little bit dreary. I'm gonna join the dog. You guys have seen him before. Hey, come here. You wanna say hi? All right. Yeah. This guy came with us too, because unlike a lot of shitbags, we don't just drop off our animals. They're not our friends, but they're definitely members of the family. And this guy, while a pain in the butt, is still a part of the family. So, anyways, you can hear from the kids screaming. I'm no longer in a secluded area. I'm in part of a much more populous area than I would normally do. I'm a big guy. Good, bad, otherwise. In fact, if you noticed, I'm not in a single house by myself. So that creates problems all on its own. Anyway, going back. It's a little too noisy out here as much as a gorgeous day it is. So going back to what you can carry. Come on, big guy. So as we were leaving, we had to think, okay, what's the weather going to be like? Where are we going to be at? How are we going to eat? What's the most important? So for us, we kind of went off basic principles like communications. How do we talk if we get separated? What do we do if flights get disconnected? We flew out of Atlanta Airport on one of the days where they saw snow for the first time in God knows how long. So that in and of itself was crazy. If you've ever been in the South and seen my ranting videos of folks in the South driving, that's terrible. They're awful. And so it just took a while. But what do we carry with us? So one of the big things that I always carry with me, cash. Why? Cash is king. If the credit cards go down, that's the best way I can get around it is by hook or by crook, having money to either pay off folks to get us into a hotel, pay off folks to get me to food, pay off folks to get me to water, to take care of my family. I carried precious metals with me on my person, under the legal amount, so that way I didn't break any laws, but I had several ounces of gold on me. Why? Because when cash doesn't work, gold might. And that's something you need to kind of look at, is that what is a good tool to help you grease the palms, not bribe, because bribing's illegal, but how do you grease the palms of people who might be capable of helping you out if you're in a bad way? Now, that's a finite resource, but I still had what I had, right? So luckily I secured lodging before we came out, which is not something that is typical. But we were left with what we had on our bag. Now, most European countries, if you go to them, don't search bags really well. They don't look for customs offenses. So I had some forms of protection on me. For those of you who've seen my walking shillelagh, I was able to carry that in my bag. I did not carry that through the airport because it was just one more thing to carry. And if you've ever dealt with having children, you end up carrying their bags too. So, but I had ways to defend myself. I had ways to pay for things. We had food and water on hand. I have that's not my middle finger, just so we're tracking. I had ways to start a fire, both with lighters. I have a Fresnel lens. I put all that stuff in my backpack. Why? God forbid the plane goes down. If I'm the only survivor of the plane, I'm gonna have at least something in me or on me. I had my keys on me, which I always have a lighter, a P38 can opener. It has basic things to try and get me to right, so that way I'm at least covered. I had cordage on me, only about 10 yards. Little itty bitty things that just in case there's an incident, if for God, I'm capable of moving out. And that was the same with my family. My family all had backup clothes. My family all had communications devices. We had the ability to sustain ourselves for up to 2 days on our own with just what we had in our small backpacks that were TSA allowable. If you count the 2 bags per person on top of that, we had entire sets of bedding. I had 2 or 3 sets of really nice sleeping bags, so that way we would have bedding should we need it. So I ended up, if you ever want a great deal, look on Midway USA for their Browning. Browning makes the bag. I forget which bag it is, but I want to say it drops down to -20. It does not come with a bivy cover, but that sucker is warm. So I had at least a couple of those. Everybody had gloves, everybody had hats, everybody had waterproof stuff. Everybody wore sneakers. We did not wear, or boots. We did not wear any flip-flops or sandals where we're going. Why? I had a bag get lost. If that was in there and I'm stuck in a place where it's prone to snow, probably not a wise idea to have the only shoes that I had that are closed-toed to not be in a bag that gets taken away. Our first shipment, so for those of you who've never moved with the military, they typically do multiple shipments. They do what they call a fast shipment or an unaccompanied baggage shipment that goes out early. We sent ours out in early December. I had timed it with shipping to where we would be in location to receive it about the same time frame, and it showed up 3 days after we got here, which is great. But that had my first batch of sustainable goods. So what came in that? Our Berkey water filter. I know you saw it whenever we were up driving around. That came with us with a backup filter set. We have some food. We had more survival stuff that's down. It's in our storage areas that we've got. That include everything from extra camping gear, extra light and heat sources, extra wool blankets. I think we've got enough blankets to, I've got enough blankets to field a small army, but they're all wool or they're synthetic fiber. So synthetic's really great for being light. So if I'm packing it around, it's great. Typically dries really fast. Wool is fantastic because it retains its heat value even if it's wet. So we maintain both of those. So all that to say, we prepped it in little stages. So what did I do? I went off the same basic principles it would be as if you're starting brand new to prepping. Find out, I have personal defense stuff, so I know how to take care of myself. I've got ways in order to procure things. I knew where I was going. I had maps and done recons of the area, both on digital and on hard copy. So I actually had physical stuff like, I am going here, I am moving from here to here, here's where we're going. If this happens, then this. So it's kind of like a choose your own adventure book. But I actually planned that stuff out. That's probably why my hair is turning more gray. It's because I was stressed out about trying to make sure when you're moving a family across continents versus moving them to a different state or moving them to a bug out area, it's a serious logistic move. You're having to plan for, how do I get from my house to the rental? car, to the rental car to the airport? How do I return the rental car at the airport? How do I fuel? Which hotel are we staying in? How do we provide food? What about the dog? The dog became a bit of a logistical nightmare because you start going, okay, airport rules say that the dog has to be this big, he has to be in this crate. And by the way, if you've seen our dog, he's about 120 pounds. We have the largest crate that they allow or that they make that's for air safe travel. It's like a triple XL. Most people in the Atlanta airport had never seen anything that big, but the rules are they have to be able to stand up and then be able to turn around inside the crate. Had to do that. Then it was, hey, you have to get rid of all of the treats and the food that we had pre-packed because it can't go in the kennel with him because it adds extra weight. Why? I don't know. Welcome to the FAA and all the stupid rules. But it was one of those things that we had to get rid of all the food, all the water, his bowls. Now what? Now that becomes a sustainment issue for how do we get that on the backside to make sure that he has water, he has food. Having a network, knowing where you're going. So if you do have to bug out, you're going to need help. If I did not have friends that were out here to provide logistics, picking up from the airports, the dropping off, if those of you have never been out in Europe on a Sunday, holy crap, a lot of that stuff closes on a Sunday, which means that you want food, tough, it's not open. You'll be lucky to find one or two apothecaries, so like a pharmacy, so if your kid's sick, like we were, that's another side story, but you can't get medicine. So when we were in transit, I was able to communicate out like, hey, my kids picked up a bug, and it was a traveler's bug. And for those of you who've known Montezuma's Revenge or Traveler's Diarrhea, it's super exciting. She was throwing up in the second half of the flight. And then I was like, okay, maybe it's just nerves. And then I started feeling gross once we landed. And by the time we were back we had established a domicile here, or at least got on ground. That's when I went downhill. And then it went through the whole family. That's super fun. We didn't have any Imodium on hand. Looking back on it, hey, stomach bug stuff is an issue, specifically when traveling. You pick up stuff. I had Tylenol because the last time, or one of the other times we traveled, same child picked up a small fever from somewhere, like 2 days before. Didn't have Tylenol on hand. I had stuff for ibuprofen. I had stuff for me. And stuff that we could break down, but it wasn't child's Tylenol or something that I felt comfortable doling out in such a high dose. So goes back to say, having a logistics network, having friends, knowing where you're going, how to get there. You can't plan for every eventuality, but you can plan for some of them. So even if I had, 5 pills of Imodium, that probably would have helped. If I'd have had a couple of Tums or a couple of Pepto-Bismol, some of the pink ones, the tabs, not the drink, that may have helped. The hard part is some of the airports stateside didn't. They had some of them had them, but it's like, hey, you want 2 pills of this? It's like $12. So then once we got to our first hop in Europe, couldn't find anything. Nothing for an upset stomach. And that's being able to read the language. I was still unable to find it. So anyway, big things are logistics, knowing where you're going, having some of the stuff like secure yourself, secure your random area, and then start building out from there. Within 24 hours, we knew of at least 2 places we could go get food. We had no transport, but we could at least walk. Again, it goes back to good shoes and bags, having the ability to go get bags. So we were able to get secure food. We started off with 3 days. Do the best you can for 3 days. And then it was, okay, once we hit 3 days, how do we get out to a week? Now we're at 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And it's simple stuff. It's not buying, I don't know if you've ever been to Europe, you can't really buy in sufficient bulk. It's expensive. Most people go to the shop every day. The location where I'm at does not have a Costco or a Sam's or a Walmart-like function where you can get a 30-pound bag of rice. but it does have some. You can maybe get a 4-pound bag of rice or a 5-pound bag of rice. Well, that's good enough to get me covered for the next few weeks. So that way, if for whatever reason, again, this is Europe, the grid goes down because of proximity to conflicts going on the east side, I have the ability to at least sustain for X amount of days. Those were the big things, is making sure I had a plan, planned it out, and then having the funds to do it. So just kind of wanted to give an update and just kind of a brief blurb. I'm going to try and be better about getting back on here and getting back to it. I have plenty of good book reviews coming up, and then I can maybe include some of our travel reviews or other things that we've noticed as we try and prep in a completely different climate than what we've done before, in a completely different area, in a place where we don't speak the language. So it creates all sorts of different challenges, but I think that they're unique and that they could be applicable elsewhere. Anyway, appreciate y'all. Stay safe out here.